Yeah, that's great. Well, that's definitely going to be your legacy for sure, is your public service in
Not
relation.
cannabis.
Speaking of, let's transition. Okay. So Steve, we had a
What?
shocking upset. You may have heard about it.
It was the lead into March Madness. It was the 16 seed knocked off a number one, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, your friend, your colleague, Doss Williams, should have easily defeated Roy Lee, especially after coming off of the Laura Capps campaign. And
Yeah.
he lost, right? Big upset.
Yeah.
It was close. It should never have been that close. And everyone's still talking about it. And everyone's going to talk about it for a long time.
Forever. Yeah.
And I guess I do talk to Doss. We have talked a lot since the campaign, during the campaign. We communicate. Eventually, we'll have an on the record conversation about what happened. But I want to ask you, like, what's your reaction to what happened? Roy Lee upsetting Doss Williams.
First off, just as a lover of, I don't like politics, but I do love elections.
Yeah.
And so I follow elections like crazy, right? Did not see that one coming at all. Like, boom. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So, and the way things have changed now, where it's like it used to be, remember, Republicans voted early and then Dems voted late, but now that Republicans don't trust mail-in ballots, so it's really hard to kind of tell. So when the initial number came in, first up, I was shocked that it was, where it was, but then trying to figure out, is he going to be able to rebound from it? But hey, big shout out to Roy Lee, man. I mean, I hope this kind of ends. It won't, but I hope it does kind of put a damper on this cynical take that even I have on elections. It's basically, I heard Karl Rove say one time, it was like, what are the three main things in a campaign? And he goes, well, the first two are money, and I can't remember the third one, right? So it's like, hey, money drives elections and politics. And I don't know how much Doss spent. I know how much he raised, but I think he ended up with money in the bank. So
He ended up with money in the bank that he was hoping to use for his next campaign, Steve, which is
yeah, that's not a good way to. You got to empty the holster, right? And then, but like I said, big shout out to Mr. Lee. I've actually called him, congratulated him. I want to sit down and talk to him, and it would be cool if it's always good to get another look. Like I said, I've had 11 other colleagues. This is my third first district supervisor. So
you've been labeled as, well, there's a derogatory term, related to cannabis.
Doobie Brothers, that's
Yes.
derogatory?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's a great band, great music, but yeah, you two have been kind of linked together on the cannabis issue, and
Yeah.
and you two
Yeah.
are friendly and professional colleagues. Was this the right call? Did voters get it right, Steve?
Oh, I can't say that. Oh, I would never say the voters got something wrong. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. They voted for Trump, so tell me, like, do the voters ever get it wrong? So here's where I differ from everybody else on Doss. But look, I wasn't a fan of Doss when he showed up. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when he ran, I was on LAFCO when he had the bill for IDCSD, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I was giving him all kinds of crap when he'd show up at LAFCO, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" He comes in, tries to do an in around LAFCO and telling us what to do. I didn't like it. So, and cannabis had nothing to do with my relationship with Doss. Where I came to like Doss personally was, well, two things. I thought he's a really good family man, and for me, I've been around so many politicians that aren't. That was good for me. But I thought what was interesting about Doss, where he gets nailed, is people are like, he's a politician, right? The guy just a flat out politician. But the funny thing, when I look at him, I'm like, okay, let's take two examples. Montecito ring nets. A smart politician would have gone to the people and said, you're right. I'm going to fight for you guys at Public Works, and I'm going to try to make this happen, knowing that the Board of Supervisors wasn't going to approve it, right? And then blame the board and come back and tell the people, man, Board of Supervisors sucks. Public Works sucks. You guys are right. That's not what Doss did. Doss went and talked to the experts in our Public Works department and said, it's not a great idea, so I'm not going to push it forward. Well, it's not a smart political move. It wasn't the political move to do, but he came across what I hear, as you guys saying, like arrogant that he did what he thought was right. Same thing with like Tahigas. The smart political move as a politician that I see a lot of people do is the environmental community doesn't want to expand Tahigas, right? They want to ship the trash out to Santa Maria or somewhere else, Riverside or Ridgecrest. And a smart politician, if Doss was a smart politician, he'd be like, oh yeah, I'm with you guys, knowing that we weren't going to do it anyway. But Doss then tells them, no, that's not the environmentally superior way to do it. The environmentally superior way is increase where we're at and quit shipping this stuff, taking our problem and giving it to somebody else. That's where I respect him, because I've never seen a guy, and I don't know, all I know is from the Board of Supervisors, but I mean, when you talk about the climate and environmentalism, I've never seen a guy live the value more than he does. He buys secondhand clothes, union made, made in America. He got on me because he was like, hey, is that a new suit? And I was like, yeah, it is. He goes, well, where was it made? I'm like, I don't even know. He goes, well, look. And I looked and I was like, Bangladesh or something. He's like, how can you do that? You can't. So some might consider that preachy and maybe that war on people. But this idea that he's like this ultimate politician to me was like the opposite. I was like, no, he's a bad politician. He's a good public servant, but he's a bad politician. But, there's a bunch of things that led to this, I think. One is, I guess there's, fatigue. I know I'm feeling it on my end of people that have voted for me for 4 and 5 times. It's like, okay, what else is out there? And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to leave, when people are I still feel I could go in, unchallenged again and do another 4 years, but I want to give somebody else a voice. Mm-hmm. The turnout was not good for him. Yeah. And if you look at Doss's politics, they are really geared more towards a younger, I think, voter electorate. And what turned up in D1 was skewed way older. Mm-hmm. And so those things weren't important to them, right? They're not concentrating on the issues that he was concentrating on. And so it was a what do they say, like a perfect storm of just a bunch of stuff, and cannabis, I'm sure, weighed on it at some point. I don't really think, I know some people are pointing, oh, it's a referendum on cannabis, but to me, that was 4 years ago. You had a candidate with much better name ID and Laura with a bigger war chest. And, that's all she was campaigning on, really. And he beat her. So maybe it's another 4 years of it, and now people are more tired of it. I don't know, but I think it's just perfect storm of a lot of different things. And, the fact that people know that Roy's not a politician and just an average guy that just wants to do good for his community might have been appealing to people.
What do you think, Steve, of all the people who turned on him? So if you look at his endorsements, okay, up until this election, everyone endorsed him. Like everybody you can think, every name you can imagine. And if you look at it, he had the firefighters, he had the Democratic Central Committee, and he had Sierra Club, and maybe he had Planned Parenthood, but he had like 3 or 4 instead of
right.
Pat McElroy, Barney Malekian, Joyce Dudley, right? These people, these Democrats coming out, right. And you have others not being very vocal, not supporting him. Do you feel like, what do you think of those people? Did they betray him? Should they sat it
everybody
out?
Does. Everybody's got their own self-interest in what they want to do. I think, Chief McElroy's was about the Montecito ringnets, right? Each one of those is kind of an individual reason why they got upset with Doss. Pat is convinced that the Montecito ringnets are the right way to do something. Doss is convinced the other way. And so this was a way for Pat to say, I think you're wrong. I don't think Joyce was really excited about, she's a registered Dem. How many registered Dems do you have there are district attorneys? Not a whole heck of a lot of them. They're most of the times conservative Republicans. Where she felt, I think, really slighted by the Board of Supervisors was, and I know some people talk to the pay raise that was denied at the end, but I think more of it had to do with the whole idea of, when our board majority is really pushing a lot of criminal justice reform, and they were kind of pointing at her as, hey, these are all the bad things, our county does in prosecuting people and putting people in prison. And she was like, man, I've been on criminal justice reform my whole life. And so I think she felt kind of betrayed that they had thrown her under the bus. And so she's like, all right, well, my turnaround's fair play. Barney Malekian's an interesting situation for me because I look at Barney, I really love him. And, at a time he was the cannabis czar and he took over Dennis Bozanich's spot. And it was so funny to me because I talked to him, I'm like, Barney, you spent your whole career putting people in jail and arresting people for this product. And now you're supposed to be the guy that's, so I don't know what his issue is or was with Doss. And I have no idea. But those are powerful people that carry a lot of weight. And endorsements are so strange. I've gotten myself in trouble with endorsements before. I mean, when I said that, I've made political decisions sometimes instead of the right thing to do. That's one I point to. I endorsed Andy Caldwell over Salud Carbajal, and that's not what I thought was the right person. But I made a political decision I wish I could take back, but that was his first, a first run. And I did something, unfortunately, it was probably in my best political interest. And I wish I could take it back. And I've told Salud that as well. And let me just tell you how good of a person Salud Carbajal is.
Yeah.
I endorsed against him for Congress. He's got a bill right now that's naming the Santa Maria post office after my dad.
Yeah.
You don't do that if you're a grudge holder, Yeah. Look, somebody endorses against me, I'm not naming crap after you. I might name a dump after you. But I mean, this guy is the ultimate, he knows how to do it. And, we've mended the fence and my favorite picture in my office is the two of us looking in two different directions on the Board of Supervisors, both really mad at each other over redistricting. But, we're friends. We'll always be friends. But yeah, Doss, obviously, he rubbed people the wrong way somehow. And, you do that enough times and it comes back to you. I don't see him that way at all. I see him in a totally different light. It has nothing to do with cannabis. It's just, I think he's funny just because he's going to come up and reference some 14th century, French theologian when we're talking about the housing element. And I never know how he gets these references in there, but somehow he does.
Yeah. I think the thing that I heard as a reporter, and you probably don't experience it because you're a white male.
Yeah.
And I think what caught him was years of this sort of belief by a lot of people who don't have power, some of them women, of his political style of maybe punishing people, cutting deals. And then if they don't go a certain way, we know about the Montecito Planning Commission appointment and Susan Keller and that whole thing, and so
I'm not even familiar with that, but
I think there's your position, like he needed you, right? So you're going to hear all of the things you have to hear because you need to be an ally. And Doss is a complicated guy. Just, I used to
agree with that. He is a very complicated dude.
He's the underdog. He was the rabble rouser. He was the guy who was going to change the world. He was the radical progressive, and he was somebody who was rising, not part of the machine. He forced himself into the machine and became the machine. And I think the lesson there is you can never forget where you came from because Roy Lee essentially outdossed him because he was the underdog.
The outsider underdog. Yes. It is weird that now Doss is the establishment, right? Yeah. And I think that you kind of have to do that to make change. I think Doss understood that because I hear him talk about that all the time with the sheriff's Deputy Sheriff's Association. He's always telling young people, look, if you want to change the way we police in this country, become a policeman. That's the best way to do it is change it from the inside. So maybe, that runs its course is you are the rebel rouser, you are the underdog. And and then, you know, you rise up through power. You rise up, you consolidate power around you, and then the guy sneaks up on you and takes you down, you know. And it's probably a lesson that's happened a million times throughout, you know, throughout human nature. It's just the way it is I think, you know, I'm a fan of boxing, and a lot of times you see this happen a lot. Like the guy that's hungry, you know, when Mike Tyson was young, man, he was unstoppable. There was no way to do it. Then all of a sudden you become the champion of the world, and you're staying in Vegas, and you're maybe staying out a little bit later, and you're enjoying the
You're
trapping.
partying all night in Tokyo, and
Yeah,
James
and then the next
Buster
thing you know,
Douglas.
some dude that's been training in his basement, you know, all of a sudden comes up and knocks you out. And yeah, no, there's definitely less. And I got to be honest, man, Doss has taken this extremely well, better than I would. He's really, you know, he said that, you know, I've got some soul searching I need to do, and you know, I need to take a look in the mirror and see it. That'll wake you up in a hurry. You know, that you're cruising along and you've been a member of the assembly before, and you probably have your sights set on Congress, and then you lose a reelection on a safe supervisorial seat. Yeah, that, you know, whatever it is the reason, whether they're justified or unjustified, or people have an axe to grind, or whatever happened, I don't know. I don't know all the dealings of, like you said, that's what I talk about with diversity and inclusion, you know, and people say, well, there's no inherent racism in Santa Barbara County. And I'm like, well, I would be the last one to know if there was, right? Like, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
So I have to take people's word for it. So if women or you know, minorities felt that he wasn't listening to them, or he was, you know, taking away their power, then, you know, I'll take that at face value.
Yeah, and I think that all the DOS haters should be aware that he could come back, and you know, never count DOS out. He could go away and come back and become our next senator or congressperson. Who knows? You know, so
Idea.
he,
No,
he
yeah, I wouldn't. It's hard to bounce back immediately, and I think he's already said that, you know, he definitely wants to spend more time. He's got 2 little kids, and, you know, and a wife, and he, you know, these jobs, they do take, you know, they do take a lot of time away, especially at night. And it'll be good for him to get back, get recentered, and who knows where we see the evolution of DOS. What's the next? I mean, there's plenty of jobs out there that'll pay more than county supervisor, so I think he's going to do fine that way. But I know he loves public policy, and he loves being in the mix, and I can't see him just walking away and riding off into the sunset. So,
yeah.
you know.
Well, you know, those boxing upsets you always cite, you know who wins the rematch? The one who lost the first time, you know.
Yeah.
Always come back.
Yeah. And I don't think he'll come back and run for first district supervisor.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm really curious to see, you know, I would be really curious to see what Roy's plans are. Like, I mean, I almost felt like I could see him being like, what? Like, I got a restaurant. What are you guys talking about? Like, I wanted to run. I really don't want to be. I don't want to have the job. You know, maybe I might be wrong, but it'll be cool to get.
Jerry and I talked to him, you know, newsmakers, and he's going to quit. He's all in. He's going to be there for time. He's really looking forward to it, and it sounds like he's going to dive in. But, you know, as you know, once you start making decisions, you know, the honeymoon is over.
Well, that's the beautiful part of this is I know people, you know, most of the votes were to punish DOS. But let's see what happens, because now you've got kind of a business-friendly moderate, right? And so, yeah, not all the votes might not be the same way anymore. Now they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute. You know, I don't even know who has Roy's ear or who's, and hopefully nobody does. What would be really cool is Roy to come in and go, look, I'm going to do 4 years, go back to my restaurant, and I'm going to do whatever I want and not listen to anybody for 4 years.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you what's been really awesome for me is, and I was really advised against it, was to announce so early that I wasn't seeking reelection, right? As soon as I got sworn in for my last term, I said, I'm not going to run again. I can't explain to you what that load off is. Just like, okay, not that you vote differently, but you don't have to do, you know, you just really get freed up to be able to make decisions a lot easier of not what's the ramification, 8 years from now, or my next reelection is Barney or Joyce, or, are they going to come after me, or what, if this person's going to, and it's the way it should be, just, I was talking with my staff the other day with Corey, and we were like, hey, maybe Mexico's got it right, a 6-year presidency with one term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, you're not beholden to anybody. You don't have to worry about your reelection. You just do what you think's right and get it over with and move on.
And when you're done with supervisors, are you done? You're just gonna...
I'm done. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of being able to work for a member of Congress. I do not want that job. And that is horrible on people's families. And I can't imagine being a member of Congress from California. I don't know how Salute does it. It's a lot of travel. It's just a nightmare. I don't like those issues anyway. And then the other thing would be like state assembly, and I have no interest in that. This is the best job out there, because you'll see people that term out in the assembly and the state senate, they want to come here. And we have former members of Congress that come in, they're serving on boards of supervisors throughout the state. You're one of 5. You get to, you're voting on every single idea that comes up, and you really get a chance to move your county in the direction that you think you see fit. So you got 4-year terms. You're not running every 2 years. It's really it's the best job out there. I've loved every day I've come into work, and I'm going to miss it when I leave, but I appreciate what Joe Centeno did for me when he left. He never called me. He never sent me an email. He never showed up at a meeting and said I was doing it wrong, or this is the way I would do it. And whoever comes in and takes off after me, I'll be disconnected, and I'll go work on veterans issues or something, and I'll volunteer somewhere, but I'm not going to be involved in any type of politics. I'm done.
Yeah.
Not to mention that it's a lot different than when I started. These people now are crazy.
Yes. Well, Steve, I think that everyone's going to miss your good-natured personality and your honesty and your genuine approach to the issues. But we still have a couple of years, where you're going to be.
We do. I'm not leaving tomorrow, so I got 2 years and 9 months to go. So
you have a hand-picked successor?
I do not, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to open it up early. I hate these things like, oh, is this person going to run for this or that? I wanted to tell people 4 years ahead of time, look, if you're trying to figure out where you're going to go in your career, or you want to do something, I gave people plenty of time. There's already like 6 or 7 people that have come in and talked to me and said, hey, tell me more about the job. I want to know more about it. A few elected officials that are looking this way. So yeah, it's going to be wide open. I haven't decided on, an endorsement yet, and won't until we get real close. And I just hope it's somebody that, keeps a live stand down. And that's my major concern, is I just want to keep that going. And, but the 5th district, when we talk about changing times, 5th district is not we say it's conservative, but it's not. It's way upside down Dem to Reap, but they are Hispanic Dems, which are more conservative. The district's 85% Hispanic, so I would imagine that I will probably be the last old white male that represents the 5th district. It should be somebody of color, and be interesting.
Yeah. Well, what a pleasure to talk to you. I greatly appreciate it. It's so fun.
Yeah. I've been a big fan of the podcast, and now I threw mine on there, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Steve, for all your insight on everything.
Hi, Josh.
It's been a really great conversation. So have a great
weekend.
Thanks for making time.
Have a great weekend.
I'll see you soon. Take care.
All right. Take it easy.